Are you looking to break into the music industry as a producer, songwriter, or artist? Well, if that's you, let me give you one piece of advice. Don't go to college. Okay, so it may not be as black and white as this, and over the course of this video, we're gonna unpack the pros and cons of college, the realities of a career in the music industry, and what exactly I would do if I had to restart my music career today. So, who the heck am I, and why should you listen to me about whether or not you should go to college for your music career? Well, my name's Christian Hale, Billboard charting producer-songwriter here in Nashville, Tennessee. My music's been streamed hundreds of millions of times, gone viral on social media, been licensed by some of the world's leading brands and networks, and to be totally transparent with you, I've had a good career over the course of my 20s, making multiple six figures per year. This college conversation, though, really hits close to home for me because I actually didn't finish my college degree. And when I decided to quit school to pursue this career, so many people in my hometown, including my own parents, thought I was absolutely crazy and totally thought I was destined to fail, but it's worked out okay so far. So this video is made for that person in the exact same position I was in 10 or 15 years ago. You have some ability, you have some talent, and you have hopes and dreams of having a career in the music industry, and you're trying to weigh out your options and figure out what the next right step for you is in getting closer to your goals. So let's get into this video and talk all about college and the music industry. Okay, so when having this conversation about whether or not you should go to college for music, I think there's a few realities that you need to understand about the music industry. So reality number one is that a college degree guarantees you absolutely nothing in the music industry. For a minute, let's compare this to a career in the medical world. Let's say you wanted to go be a doctor, and I'm no expert on how to break into the world of being a doctor, but go with me for the purpose of this example here. Let's say you wanted to be a doctor. Well, the career path and the path of getting to being a doctor is laid out pretty clearly for you. It's a long grind of undergrad and then medical school and then residency and then fellowship. And you know, you're gonna spend 10, 12, 15 years. I don't even know how long it takes to become a doctor, but it's a long time. And you know, you're probably gonna have to take out student loans. It's gonna cost you a lot of money. It's a long process. But the reason why so many people go through that long, grueling process is they know on the other side, they're more or less guaranteed a job or a clear path to a job with really good income. Doctors know that if they spend the time and money on all that education, on the other side, they can probably start at making multiple six figures a year, and over the course of their career even grow to close to seven figures a year. But bringing this example back to the music industry literally couldn't be more opposite from this. See, whether or not you have a degree, you're guaranteed nothing on the other side of the degree. And right now I'm talking specifically to producers, songwriters, and artists. I will say that if your goal is to go rise the ranks and work in a corporate label or publishing company, a degree could maybe be helpful. But specifically producers, songwriters, and artists, whether you have a piece of paper or a degree from an institution or not, you're guaranteed nothing on the other side. So I think that's critical for you to understand and get your head around as we continue to have this conversation. Reality number two that you have to understand in this conversation is that colleges are freaking expensive. As of the time I'm making this video, tuition for Belmont is around $40,000 a year, and tuition for Berkeley is $46,000 per year. That's tuition alone before room and board, living expenses, and housing in what's most likely going to be a really expensive city. So considering point one that we discussed a minute ago, that you're guaranteed nothing in the music industry on the other side of your college degree, I think it's imperative to ask yourself, is $200,000 worth of tuition the best use of your money for your career goals? What might it look like if you took a small fraction of that money and invested it directly in your career? If you're an artist, what would happen if you paid a producer a small fraction of that budget to give you actual songs that will count towards your career? Or if you're a producer, what if you took a small percentage of that money and got a good studio setup that you could actually start making money with? If you really want to take this further, go see what $200,000 over the course of 30 years is worth in a compound interest calculator, and then have this conversation of, is this the best use of my money or not? The final reality number three that I want you to be aware of in having this conversation and making this decision is that your work is going to be what makes or breaks your career in the music industry. As I've said a couple times now, It's not gonna be a piece of paper that gets you opportunities and moves your career along. It's gonna be your work, what you've done, and there's more nuances to it than that. Of course, how you treat people, your work ethic, your baseline of talent. But at the end of the day, what you do is what's gonna be what opens doors for you and moves your career forward. For me as a producer and songwriter, the things that bring me new opportunities and get me work have absolutely nothing to do with whether or not I went to college. In fact, in my now 10 years of doing this professionally, I don't think anyone I've worked with has cared whether or not I went to school for music. The things that instead get me work and bring me new opportunities are my past work, my discography, my credibility, my reputation around town, how I treat people, and a number of other things like this, not the college degree. If you're an artist, your listeners are never gonna ask to see your diploma. They're simply only gonna care about whether or not they like your music. So again, your work is what's gonna open doors for you in your career, not a college degree. So considering these few realities, it really is up to you whether or not you think college is the best path for you. There's a number of people that I actually do work alongside with here in Nashville that went to college, some of them not for music, some of them for music, and they have had successful careers in the music industry on the other side. By the same token, there's tons of people I work with that didn't go to school at all or went to some school like I did and then quit to go down this road of doing music full time. And I would say I almost on a day in, day out basis work with more successful people in that camp than folks who did go to college. But the people that I do know that went to college for music and were successful on the other side, almost all of them would tell you, and I've had this conversation with so many of them over the years, it had very little to do with my degree. It had way more to do with what I did after I got my degree in the real world. So with all this in mind and all this to consider, I want to give you a list of several things I would do if I were starting over my music career today instead of going to college. Depending on what your goals are and what your situation is, maybe you just implement one of these things or a few of these things. Take what I'm about to give out to you and apply it to your own situation. This list is in no particular order and no order of importance. If I were starting over again as a producer and songwriter, I would take maybe one semester of tuition, $10, $15, maybe $20,000 if you really wanted to go crazy, and go get a good basic recording setup. Get the gear that again is gonna make you money, or at least have the opportunity to make you money. If I were an artist, I may also get somewhat of a home studio setup, but I would take this money and invest it in actual costs in your career, in your real life artist project, and we'll get into some of that more later on down this list. The next thing I would do is I would get my butt to a music city like Nashville or LA. And there's different schools of thoughts on this out there, but as somebody who grew up in the Midwest, I was raised in Nebraska and I went to college in Nebraska and quit school in Nebraska to pursue again this music thing and ultimately end up here in Nashville. But as somebody who started not in Nashville and then ended up in Nashville, I couldn't, now being almost 7 years into my time here in Nashville, imagine doing this not being in a music city. To me, it's the concept of being present to win. There's so much power in being in a community, being in a city where the lifeblood of the economy is filled with people who are working in the music industry and in creative fields. When you're starting out, I also do think there's something to the confidence level of being around people who understand the career path you're on. And when you're in a music city like Nashville, there's gonna be countless people that you run into that are artists, that are producers, that are songwriters, that are managers, that work on the label side. So when you tell them, hey, I just moved to town, I'm trying to make it as a songwriter or trying to make it as a producer or trying to cut my teeth as an artist, instead of being met with something like, well, I've never heard of that, how's that even possible? Most people you meet in a city like Nashville are going to personally be friends with countless other people that are very successful in those exact roles. So I really think there's something to that. By the same token, when I go back to the Midwest to visit family, you know, I laugh and I really don't do anything I do to try to prove people back home wrong or anything like that. But my wife and I, you know, when people say, oh, you live in Nashville, what do you do? And I say, I work in music, I'm a producer and songwriter. One of the things that I get asked so many times over the course of years going back to visit, and my wife as well, is how do you make money? Like, that's a real career path? Like, are you doing okay? Like, I seriously have been asked those things so many times over the years. And again, like I said, I don't do what I do to prove those people wrong whatsoever. But going back to this concept of being in a community of like-minded people who you can see that a career path is a real possibility and people are gonna encourage you. They're gonna understand what you're doing, as opposed to being surrounded by a bunch of people that don't understand the path you're on. I think there really is something to being in the community of like-minded people. The next thing I would do along with moving to a music city is if I was young and needed some short-term cash, I would try any way possible to get short-term cash from something related to the music industry. You see, in a city like Nashville or LA, there's countless jobs related to the music industry that maybe aren't the exact thing you want to pursue, but again, so much of the economy in music cities revolves around music and the creative arts. In Nashville, there's record labels, music publishers, managers, booking agents, even attorneys, accountants, graphic designers that all literally specialize in supporting artists, producers, and songwriters. So if I needed some short-term cash, I would try to go get an entry-level job, maybe being a secretary or a cheap paid intern, something like not sexy, not flashy whatsoever, but something related to music. Again, even if it wasn't exactly in the field of music I hope to be in long-term. From there, I would go be the best employee I possibly could and work my butt off, serve people, treat them well, don't ask for anything, don't flaunt my side project of, oh, I actually produce too, or I write songs too, or I'm trying to be an artist. I wouldn't worry about any of that yet. I would just go in, do the best job I possibly can, serve people well, and make those people want to be around me. At the same time though, because you're in and around the music industry, if you genuinely treat people well, even in that low-level, entry-level cash job, there's a good chance that you're gonna make relationships from people actually working in the music industry, and over time, those relationships can lead to the next best opportunity. This next tip goes out to artists specifically, but it's to get your hands on the best song you possibly can. For you as an artist, that may mean that you're a great songwriter and you're writing that song yourself, but it may also mean that you're not writing that song yourself. If I were a young artist just starting out, I would get in the room with the best songwriters I possibly can. And the reality of what that may mean is that you're asking to write with songwriters who it's not necessarily, quote, worth their time to write with you unless they believe in you. And if they believe in you long term, that's amazing, that's great. But one thing I would advise you to do, and I've seen songwriters, I know tons of songwriters, I am a songwriter, but if you offer to pay a songwriter for their time, if you're a new artist and you go to a songwriter, let's say you find their credits, you look up to them, and you say, hey, I'm a new artist. I would love to get better as a songwriter. I love what you do. How much would it cost for you and I to write a song together and you teach me and I learn from you through the session? I guarantee you, if you take that approach with songwriters, you'll be able to get in the room with songwriters that you quote unquote shouldn't be able to write with yet. Compensate those songwriters for their time, and at the same time, you're learning so much from working with people. This is kind of a side piece of advice, but I think that's one of the smartest things you can do to progress in any field, especially in the music industry, is let's say you want to get better as a songwriter. The best piece of advice I can give is try to get in the room with songwriters who are better than you. You're going to start noticing tips and techniques and patterns that those people do instinctively, and kind of by osmosis and by being around people better than you enough times, you're going to start incorporating those things in your workflow, and given enough time and consistency, you're going to get 2, 3, 4 years down the road and grow exponentially. That all started from being in the room with people who are better than you. Another tip for you artists specifically is literally, I would start playing the game yourself right away. Sure, work on crafting the best songs you possibly can, as I mentioned one step ago, but just start playing the game. And what I mean by that is start putting your branding together. Post songs on social media, post videos on TikTok, get on YouTube, release what music you have. Like when you're first starting out, this is so much about developing the muscle of actually being an artist, and there's nothing like reps. There's no substitute for reps of actually getting on TikTok and making those videos, or getting on Instagram and making the videos. Writing, playing shows, like do whatever you can, just start playing the game. I think it's borderline delusional to expect, if you're an aspiring artist and you hope to have a career, let's say signed to a record label one day, whether or not that's your goal, just go with me for a minute. If your goal is to be signed by a record label, it's delusional in 2024, as of the time I'm filming this video, to expect that some guy in a suit is just gonna pluck you out of thin air in a city with tons of other talented people and say, hey, I think you might be talented. You don't have anything going on, but I wanna give you a record deal. I wanna give you a shot. The reality is that's not gonna happen. What is though gonna get the attention of people who can help your career, managers, publishers, record labels, producers, better songwriters, is they're gonna see some buzz that you've created on your own. So the best thing you can do is literally just start playing the game yourself and maximize what you can possibly do on your own. This next tip is a little bit more specific for aspiring producers and songwriters, but it does go for artists as well. But if I were starting over as a producer, one of the first things I would do is get a mentor. I was fortunate enough to be mentored by someone early on in my music career, and the power of that was game-changing for me. First off, just to have somebody that was actually making money doing the career. It allowed me to, again, see that the career path I was aspiring to was a possibility despite my family and a bunch of people around me not understanding what I was trying to do. The next thing with mentorship is at the beginning, it was so powerful for me to hear from someone that, man, like, I think you have what it takes. You're not there yet. You have some work to do, but I'm going to help you out. And if you're diligent and you put in the work, you put in the reps, you give it enough time, I think you have what it takes to be successful. And we all know in the music industry, the power of belief is everything. Having someone when you don't have anything going on, when you're not making much money at the beginning, when you're just dreaming, you're hoping that this might pay off someday, to have one person look you in the eye and say, I think you have something here, keep going, that is invaluable at the beginning. And those of you watching this that have been fortunate enough to have that experience know exactly what I'm talking about. The other thing about mentorship, though, is there really is no substitute for gaining knowledge from a professional, from somebody you look up to, somebody who's been there and done that. I think it can help supercharge your career, getting insight from people better, wiser, smarter than you. And that's something now a decade into my music career, I am always trying to do. I'm really not interested in comparing down and looking backwards at people that are quote unquote behind me in my career. I love helping those people and love helping pull them along, give them advice that hopefully catapults their career forward. But for me personally, I'm always aspiring to learn more from people who are further ahead of me and further along in their career. So I really think this concept of mentorship never ends if you want to be successful. And with that, I will say real quick that I do have some mentorship-like services available to you on my website. I offer limited amounts of one-on-one coaching spot, as well as give feedback on songs and production. So visit my website, christianhale.co, to learn more about both coaching and song feedback. The next thing I would do is keep in mind that this is not a quick game. This is a very long game, and I would do everything possible to do really good, consistent work over the course of time. You know, a saying that you might be familiar with when somebody moves to Nashville is that it's a 10-year town, meaning that it takes 10 years to have a hit or to have things going for you in the right direction. And whether or not that's true, there's people who it's happened faster for them. There's people who it's taken longer for them than 10 years. But I think the sentiment of that saying is what's really important. Meaning, don't expect to come to Nashville. Maybe you're the most talented person in your hometown, but don't expect to come to Nashville and on day one, you're going to sign a record deal. You're going to be making all kinds of money. Things are going to start happening for you. No, this is a long game. Be consistent over time. And there really is no substitute for good work that's consistent over a long period of time. With that, if I were starting over, I would literally say yes to every opportunity that came my way, and also would try not to fixate on getting paid in the short term. Again, this all goes back to playing that long game. Don't worry about making a buck in the short term, even if you're tight on rent. Focus way more on honing your skills, getting those reps in, building relationships, having people want to be around you. That's going to pay off for you way more in the long term. So with that, if somebody brings you an opportunity or asks you to do something and maybe your gut instinct is to say no, or maybe it doesn't pay very well, or maybe it doesn't pay at all, literally for the first, I don't know, year, 2-3 years in my career, if I was just starting out, I would say yes to all of that. And again, I know from experience, and people who have also become successful in the music industry can tell you, you never know where those relationships and those yeses might lead to long term. The final thing I would do, and this one truly never goes away, but this one is key to understand, is I would figure out how to best serve the people around me and add as much value to every single circumstance that I possibly could. Figure out how to walk into a room and understand your role in the room. That might be different from room to room. That might be different from person to person. But with every person that you have the opportunity to interact with, figure out subtly, not in a weird way, but just through natural relationships, what their pain points are. And if you are in any way positioned to take something off their plate, add value to that person, and help that person out. I guarantee you, if you can get in the genuine mindset, not to gain something on the other side, but the true genuine mindset and the true genuine goal of serving those around you and adding value to every single person you come in contact with, I don't know exactly how it works, but through osmosis, over time, that will pay off for you in your career. So that's a wrap on this video about whether or not you should go to college for music. I hope I gave you lots of things to think about and consider as you're deciding if college is the path for you or not. Again, as I talked about earlier in this video, there's tons of people who have been successful in the music industry going to college, but there's also tons of people who have been wildly successful not going to college. I hope this video gave you lots of things to consider and brought value to you as you're making your decision. If this video brought you some value, would you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment down below, let me know what the most helpful part of this video is, and ring that notification bell for more videos just like this. Again, I have lots of resources available on my website, christianhale.co, so head over there and check out all those resources. And until then, we'll see you next time.